tonight. It's one of my favorite SEAC meetings of the entire year, and we will get to that in a moment. But I just want to remind everyone that the meeting is being recorded and it's being live streamed. So just a reminder, again, you are welcome to leave your cameras on for any part of the conversation. If you feel like you need that face-to-face, please do so. Just make sure that your microphones are off unless you're speaking, just so that we don't get a lot of the background noise. So I wanted to call the meeting to order. Andrea, I'm wondering if you could put the opening prayer up, and if not, I've got it here. Okay, perfect. So if you'll all join me in the sign of our faith, in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. We come together in hope from different community groups answering the same call to service, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in gratitude for the trust placed in us, for the opportunity to serve, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in respect, aware of our diversity, willing to work for the good, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in awe of the wonder and beauty of each of God's children, pieces of the same puzzle. We come together in God's name, and as we work together toward the same goal, each piece of the puzzle begins to fit neatly into place, creating a breathtaking picture of love, compassion, courage, and grace. In the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And we are going to move now to the land acknowledgement.
Each of us has a relationship to the natural environment, the land, water, earth, the habitat, and ecosystems. Land acknowledgements provide us with an opportunity to offer recognition, respect to the original inhabitants of the regions that we live in and work on. There are many things that we can do to go beyond simply reading a land acknowledgement script. To make it more meaningful, we need to consider that we are, in fact, acknowledging not only the ancestral lands, but also the historical and complex intersections of settler impacts on Indigenous histories, economies, ecologies, livelihood, well-being, and governance structures. A territorial acknowledgement is not an endpoint in the journey of reconciliation. Actions create conditions for true reconciliation and create a foundation for restoring, renewing, or developing a new relationship with Indigenous peoples. For hundreds of years, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Attawaddaron, the Potawatomi, the Wendat, and Lenape nations have sought to walk gently on this land. They assisted the first European travelers to this territory and shared their knowledge for survival in what was, at times, a harsh climate. Under consultations from elders, knowledge holders from the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and 6 nations of the Grand River Territory, the Indigenous Education Advisory Committee, along with Halton Catholic District School Board, created this land acknowledgement.
Halton, as we know it today,
is rich in the history and modern traditions
of many First Nations and the Métis.
From the lands of the Anishinaabe
to the Attawaddaron,
the Haudenosaunee,
and the Métis. These lands surrounding the Great Lake
are steeped in Indigenous history.
As we gather today
on these treaty lands,
our Catholic social teachings
call us in solidarity
with our Indigenous brothers and sisters
to honor and respect
the 4 directions: lands, waters, plants, animals, and ancestors that walked before us.
All these wonderful elements of creation exist,
gifted to us by our Creator God. We acknowledge and thank
the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation
for being stewards of this traditional territory.
Great. Thanks so much, Andrea. We'll just wait a second to get the agenda. Oh, you're quick tonight. Thank you. Okay, so that was amazing. That's a wonderful video, and I'm glad that it will now become a part of our opening exercises for our SEAC meeting.
What we'd like to offer up to you all is a practice that we've been developing and working to kind of integrate.
Sorry about that. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So we're going to move to 1.2, which is the approval of the agenda. Did everybody receive a copy of the agenda? Was there any additions, deletions, or corrections? No? Okay. Can I get an approval to can I get someone to approve the agenda, please?
I will approve it. Brenda, it's Maria.
Thanks, Maria. So moved by Maria. Do I have a seconder?
This is Paul. I'll second it.
Thanks, Paul. Seconded by Paul. Wonderful. Is that you second? Are you seconding, Diane?
Paul's done it. That's fine.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure I saw that your hand was up.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So as I had said earlier, this is my favorite, and I think everybody that has been on SEAC will agree that this is our favorite meeting of the entire year. Sadly, we're not able to do this in person, but this evening is the evening that we present the Spirit of Inclusion Awards to our two recipients. And for those who are not aware, the Spirit of Inclusion Award is an award that's sponsored by the Special Education Advisory Committee. We receive nominations from across our elementary school panel as well as our secondary panel. It is never easy. We have a committee that we work with to choose, ultimately, at the end of all of it, to choose a recipient from each of the elementary and secondary panels. It is one of the hardest things to do. All of the nominations are incredible. It's so heartwarming, and I get so proud and grateful to have students like that in our system. So just a small note that for all the nominees, they will be recognized individually by their schools. And so that opportunity to congratulate them on their nomination will not be lost. So I wanted to welcome everybody that's here tonight, the students. There's families that are online tonight and staff from each of the schools. So thank you for being here. Like I said, sadly we can't do this in person, but it still does not diminish the importance and the excitement of these awards. So I'm going to start, just let me get my notes here. I am going to start with our elementary recipient. So the Spirit of Inclusion Award for the elementary panel goes to Rachel Celia. Rachel is in grade 8 from St. Benedict Catholic Elementary School in Milton. Yeah, exactly. Everybody, a round of applause. Super exciting. So let me read a little bit of the bio for Rachel, and this is just a snapshot of how awesome she is. But Rachel exemplifies kindness, empathy, and willingness to learn. She seeks to honor others through her kind heart, kind words, and kind gestures. Rachel has been an active contributor to the St. Benedict school community. She has been a leader in a number of the kindergarten classrooms where she would organize games for the students during lunch recesses. Rachel notices if someone is being left out and will go out of her way to ensure that they feel included. At recess, she is often found engaging and entertaining one of her classmates who may be playing alone. Her positive demeanor in the classroom is infectious and allows classmates to feel valued and included. She works in solidarity with her teachers and classmates to promote the dignity of all whom she encounters. Rachel exudes positivity and is referred to as a beautiful soul by staff at St. Benedict School. So congratulations, Rachel. So I'm gonna let, Andrea, are you gonna pop on and let us know what we need to do here?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Actually, Juliana is going to take the picture just because she has She's got a better device than I do, so it will turn out a bit more crisp. So Brenda, maybe what we can do is we have the student turn on their camera. Then we can get a picture of the student recipient. And then
Rachel,
maybe.
Are you able to do that?
Perfect. And what I'll do is I'll spotlight Rachel so that Rachel is all we see. That should work. Juliana, does that work?
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, Rachel, I'm going to count down to 3. It's going to be awkward because you don't know when I'm taking the photo, but right after I say 1, you can smile. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
That was perfect. And then maybe we can get one with Brenda as well. Did you want another one, or was that looked pretty good?
Why don't we, I was going to say, why don't we do one perhaps with the principal?
Sure. Is the principal on, Mr. Guerin?
Yeah, I'm on.
Perfect.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Focus on Rachel, okay? Not on me.
I know, but this will be a nice memory.
Look at you. You're all dressed up too. It's perfect.
What are you talking about? This is just my normal evening wear I have on tonight.
So I'm going to unspotlight Rachel so that we can see the two of them together. Okay.
Could we have Brenda in the third box?
Does anybody else? Yeah, that'd be great, Brenda. Can you go in the third box, Brenda, if you don't mind?
I'm not dressed nearly as nicely as Mr. Guerin is, but I'm proud to be a part of the picture. So how do we, I wonder, move?
I'm not sure. It's Paul, right?
Yeah.
Because his camera seems to be off. So I'm not sure why.
Jody, like Miss Flanagan, how about you go? Because you've worked with Rachel for such a long time.
Thanks, Mal. I don't want to step on Mr. Guerin's toes.
Oh, don't worry about my toes. I'd rather have you up here than me, Mrs. Flanagan.
We just need to.
I just don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure how to take.
I don't know either. Usually when the person speaks, it'll sort of take over.
Yeah.
Jody, take your camera, put it on. Maybe you'll pop in.
I think what's going to happen is then we'll have 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so Paul, could I get you to turn your camera on and then off again? Perfect. And then off. Okay, that worked. Good. Thank you. So now we can get Jody on if you'd like.
All right, everybody. I'll do the countdown again. 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
Amazing. Great. And congratulations again, Rachel. Amazing.
Oh, so much,
well
Rachel.
done.
I'm so proud of you.
You're very welcome. It's an honor to present these awards.
Congratulations, Rachel. You've got a great team here for you. And congratulations to the school.
Okay, I am going to move on to our recipient for our secondary award. So let me just grab my notes here. Okay, for our secondary panel, the Spirit of Inclusion Award winner is Robbie Prasad. Robbie is in grade 12 from Holy Trinity Secondary School in Oakville. I'm going to read a little bit from the submission about Robbie. Robbie is a trailblazer in the Holy Trinity Shield program. This program helps the transition to secondary school for grade 8 students be a more comfortable and inclusive experience. Robbie is also a leader in the Best Buddies program. He meets with the life skills teachers to help them plan events and regularly drops by the class for visits with the students. During COVID, he continues to interact with the life skills students virtually. He has developed and continued friendships with all of the life skills students. Robbie is a mentor to students and checks in on students that he knows may need a friend. He is an active volunteer in many other ways at Holy Trinity, such as assisting the chaplain organize I'm struggling over my words tonight. Organize liturgical services and thanking guest speakers at events. Robbie is known for his very calm, quiet presence, and he is a consistent and reliable student and friend. So congratulations, Robbie. Round of applause. So exciting. So if you want to do the same thing and put your camera on, we'd love to get a picture.
So Brent,
Yep, I'm here, Andrea.
That's perfect.
Okay, Robbie, in a few seconds, you can just look into the camera. I'll do a countdown for you too.
Sure thing.
3, 2, 1. Perfect.
Awesome. And who I think as well, it'd be great to get a picture of you with your principal and any other members of the team from your school that want to jump in. The more the merrier.
I think Nicole and Patricia should join as well for sure. There you are.
Wonderful.
Congratulations, Robbie. Well done.
Thanks, Miss.
And Brenda, you as well?
Sure.
Miss Urinsich, are you going to come on?
Oh, wonderful.
All right, everybody. 3, 2, 1. That's great.
Awesome.
Well done, kiddo.
Yeah, another congratulations. Well done.
I have to say congratulations, Robbie. Well done.
Sorry, could we actually get one more? Somebody's eyes were shut in the last one.
So can we, before you take that, Juliana, Robbie, would you mind turning off your camera? And then when you turn it back on, you'll be the biggest picture, if you don't mind.
Sure thing.
Thank you. Yep, perfect. And then Brenda.
Am I okay? You want me to turn off and on?
No, turn it on. You're not where I'm seeing your avatar.
Oh, you see me now?
No.
No.
Oh, my camera's on. That's okay. Don't worry about it, Andrea.
But we see an avatar.
We see your family portrait.
So now my avatar shows up, and then right now it looks like my camera's on.
Okay, there
it
that
is.
works.
Oh,
so
okay.
Keep like that, but then Robbie, if you turn your camera off again and turn it back on again, you'll be in the biggest picture.
With
slot.
4 people though, Andrea? With
Yeah.
4 people?
No,
Okay.
with 5. Perfect. There we go.
Perfect. Okay. All right. 3, 2, 1. Let me double check that one. Yep, everybody's eyes are open.
Awesome.
Well
Wonderful.
done.
Congratulations again, Robbie.
Thank you, Miss.
Congrats, Robbie.
Thanks.
So everyone that is on, you are absolutely free to stay, or you're free to go as we move on with the meeting. And thank you all again to everybody that joined and supported our recipients this evening, and congrats to both of our recipients again. Okay, so we're just going to move on to item 2.2. And so we have a presentation this evening from our behavioral analyst services and support in the ABA Bonanza presentation. So joining, I'm just watching all the congratulations come in. It's awesome. So I wanted to welcome Jody O'Reilly, who most of you know. Jody is our special education coordinator, and behavior analyst Nicole Franz and Katie Mann, who will be presenting on behavior analyst services and support and the ABA Bonanza. So welcome and thanks for joining us.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Brenda. I'm actually going to turn it over quickly to Nicole and Katie to begin our presentation.
Thanks, Jody, and thank you, Brenda, for the introduction, and good evening, everyone. I'm Katie Mann. I'm the behavior analyst for the Holy Trinity family of schools and most of the St. Francis Xavier family of schools. And I'm joined this evening by my colleague, Nicole Franz, who's the behavior analyst for the Christ the King family of schools and select schools in the Bishop Redding and St. Francis Xavier families. We're grateful for the opportunity to share with you some information around the behavior analyst role at HCDSB, our processes for student and school support, and then Jody will be detailing plans for our ongoing ABA for All professional development series, the ABA Bonanza. There are 5 HCDSB BAs, although we show 6 here on the slide. We did welcome Tara back today from maternity leave part-time this morning, and we'll be saying goodbye to Amy over the next little while. All of the HCDSB behavior analysts hold credentials from the Behavior Analyst Certification Board at either the BCBA or BCABA level. As part of our ABA for All initiative, a postcard of information was created to share with school teams to highlight the role of the behavior analyst at HCDSB. This postcard explains that behavior analysts use science of ABA with a focus on the analysis and evaluation of social and environmental factors that affect the behavior of our students, and that we help schools to implement strategies to support behavior change that are data-driven and consistent with the principles demonstrated in the evidence-based literature. This postcard, which we provided to schools, references the types of support available and explains how BAs help schools to build capacity via our transdisciplinary rounds, transition support, focused support processes, as well as ABA for All. It also acts as a handy reference tool for staff with information on how to access our ABA SharePoint for resources, graphics, tip sheets, and past presentations, and it guides staff in accessing our ABA walk-ins, which I'll review further on the next slide. This slide highlights the processes that the BAs are involved in, with more detail to be provided in the slides to come. As you can see, this is the HCDSB tiered model of intervention. In Tier 1 and Tier 2 and Tier 3, you can see the different HCDSB BA processes: focused support and transition support in Tier 1, TDR at the top of Tier 2, and our Tier 3 support in Tier 3. Additionally, in Tier 1, BAs provide ABA walk-in support and support third-party observations and meetings. Through ABA walk-ins, school teams can access a behavior analyst to ask general questions regarding ABA strategies in a no-name consult format. BAs provide weekly opportunities for Teams calls with HCDSB staff for this purpose. As part of our collaborative relationships agreement and third-party policy, behavior analysts attend observations and meetings that may occur between a school team and a community-based behavior service provider. The HCDSB BA helps the school team to connect the links between the service and goals being addressed by the external provider and skills in the school environment using an ABA and education lens.
Focus support is a newer process that officially launched in September of 2019. The purpose of this level of support is to build capacity around Tier 1 and Tier 2 ABA strategies within the school team and itinerant team. The process begins with an observation by the behavior analyst prior to the joint visits to help identify the area of need, and then a total of 3 joint visits, approximately 1 per week, with the behavior analyst and the itinerant team will occur. During the joint visits, a behavior skills training model is used to support the framework of the staff training. A behavior skills training model includes reviewing the strategy or strategies, providing modeling of how to use the strategies, rehearsal, and then feedback when teaching the selected strategies. All ABA processes now have brochures for parents as well as staff to help familiarize them with the different BA supports. So should a student be accessing any behavior analyst services, parents and guardians will be provided a brochure that outlines the process and what role they play throughout the process. This is an example of a parent and guardian focused support brochure. The brochure outlines what strategies may be included in Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports, which are evidence-based proactive strategies. So pairing, motivation, and visual supports are a few examples. It also includes a description of what will occur during each visit. So for example, staff will identify the area of need. The BA or the behavior analyst and the itinerant team will explain the strategy or the strategies to the school team. They will model and provide opportunities for staff to practice, and finally provide feedback. The final section indicates that parents play an important role in continuing to communicate with the school team throughout the process, as well as sharing outcomes and strategies with any community partners as appropriate. It also provides details on who to contact should they have any questions about the process. All brochures follow the same format, and so we'll show you a few examples of the transition support and TDR brochures coming up as well. Staff also have a brochure, will receive a brochure, which provides information on what to expect of the behavior skill training approach, how each participant will be involved in the process, and what to expect with each focus support visit. The staff brochure goes into more detail around the roles that each participant at the school level will take during the focus support process. So for example, the school team will participate in joint visits, work collaboratively to support strategies and complete action items. They will keep parents informed of visit outcomes and contact the behavior analyst if any concerns arise between joint visits. It also indicates what steps of the behavior skills training will occur during each joint visit and what next steps may occur following the completion of the focus support process.
Behavior analyst transition support is provided for students who may need support that are entering an HCDSB school from an alternative program, for example, an ABA service, a CPRI, or a Woodview service, or from another school, both within our board and from other school boards. Additionally, some students may access BA support for transitions from year to year, and more recently, given COVID-19 and remote learning, transition support has been provided for students who are transitioning to or from online learning environments. Support is provided for a 4 to 6 week period with visits scheduled determined by transition goals and are gradually faded over time. The BA, along with the itinerant team, support the school to ensure that ABA strategies are in place prior to the transition and that ongoing training and strategy implementation builds capacity of the school team to continue with the transition. As Nicole referenced, we do have both parent, guardian, and staff brochures for the transition process as well that are provided prior to the process beginning. There is an outline of what to expect during the process, information for each person participating in the process as to what they may be responsible for and what will occur during the joint visits. Additionally, the brochure provides parents and guardians with information on how they are involved and informed of strategies and outcomes. For example, the sharing of outcomes with community partners where appropriate, and ongoing communication and collaboration with the school team throughout the process.
Transdisciplinary rounds is the top of Tier 2 behavior analyst support. It uses a meeting mechanics model to help team members focus on problem solving and goal setting in a time efficient manner. All ideas suggested by the team are respected and recorded, and a goal is identified. Potential barriers are addressed, responsibilities are assigned, and data collection methods are determined. Action plans are created using the Transdisciplinary Rounds goal setting worksheet, and everyone gets a copy to support completion of their assigned responsibilities. The worksheet is a working document and it is updated following each visit. This process provides wraparound support to schools by the behavior analyst, the itinerant team, and other key staff to build capacity at the school level. Prior to holding a Transdisciplinary Rounds meeting, the school team provides families with information on what to expect from the process and the meeting. as they are an important part of the TDR process and encourage their attendance and active participation in the goal setting cycle. There are 3 components to the meeting mechanics process: the guiding principles, the guidelines, and the goal setting cycle, which is pictured on this slide. All participants in the meeting follow the meeting mechanics principles and guidelines to work collaboratively through the cycle. When working through the goal setting cycle, the goal chosen must be student specific, measurable, and observable. All ideas are good ideas. There is a focus on developing strategies in line with best evidence-based practices. We don't let barriers paralyze the cycle. Team members support each other in meeting task deadlines, and it is action plan driven. Following the TDR meeting, the behavior analyst and the itinerant team complete up to 4 joint visits to support strategy implementation. Parents are informed by the special education resource teacher or the CERT of the outcomes following each visit, and a final goal or strategy discharge note is shared with the parents when the TDR process is complete. And then again, we here have some partial examples of both the staff and the parent and guardian brochures that are provided to families and schools regarding the TDR process. These brochures follow the same outline as the focus support and the transition support brochures to provide information as to what occurs prior to the TDR, during the TDR, and as a follow-up. It also encourages parental involvement in the process by highlighting the importance of attendance at the transdisciplinary rounds meeting to share strengths and learning needs, and to participate in the brainstorming process of the goal setting cycle and take on any action items that may be needed to support their child across all environments. So for example, sharing strategies with community partners where appropriate.
As we are very focused on our data, we like to collect data about all of our processes. So following each of our ABA processes, transition support, focus support, and transdisciplinary rounds, we collect electronic feedback surveys that are anonymous. Everyone who is involved in the process is asked to complete a survey. So this includes parents and guardians, as well as all school staff. And it is collected through a Microsoft Forms link that is sent in a sort of discharge email or note following the completion of the process. These feedback surveys are used to inform any changes that may be required to our process, or adjust and revise based on the experience of the families that are participating in the process, as well as the staff who are involved. We do have a new infographic that we are going to launch to the system this year that we did want to share with you. And this is a reminder for schools to ensure that strategies that may have been implemented following a BA support process throughout the school year is highlighted when planning for the transition to the following school year. We wanted to make sure that schools were referencing any of the goal setting worksheets that had been completed throughout the BA processes, and making sure that that information is gathered and shared and then transferred to the school team for the following year.
There are a handful of students in our board that require ongoing intensive behavior analyst support due to their complex behavioral needs. So as part of Tier 3 supports, behavior analysts work collaboratively with the school team, parents and guardians, and other HCDSB disciplines and community agencies to support ABA strategies in the school environment. And then the behavior analysts have also assembled and created accessible ABA resources for school staff and parents. We have resources using ABA strategies during remote learning on the ABA for All Learn at Home page, which is linked on this presentation, as well as transition support resources for returning to school after remote learning, social distancing, mask wearing, hand washing, COVID testing, and waiting for results, available on the ABA for All Return to School page, again linked on the presentation. We also share many great resources on both Twitter and YouTube. On Twitter, in addition to retweeting other great resources, whenever we can, we release tips on ABA strategies for Tuesday Tidbit and Friday Freebie. And on YouTube, we have videos that we've created to support the use of strategies. And we've also created lists of other videos that we viewed and may share with schools and families.
Thank you, Nicole and Katie. That's great. So I wanted to share with you about the upcoming ABA Bonanza series, the ABA Bonanza 2.0, as we like to call it. So what is this? This is collaboratively with the different disciplines within our special education department and led by our behavior analysts. We have created an online learning module on discipline-specific topics related to ABA. So our topics include the following. Our BA and I teams have prepared presentations on pairing, reinforcement, environmental setup, active student responding, placing demands, visuals, virtual learners. CYCs have prepared presentations on mentally healthy schools and classrooms and everyday faith and wellness in the classroom. Social workers have prepared a presentation on time to reflect and breathe, COVID-19 and racism. Psychoeducational consultants have prepared presentations on anxiety and ADHD, and our SLPs have prepared presentations on alternative and augmentative communication and peer-mediated prompting. So all board staff will have the opportunity to view pre-recorded presentations as well as attend a live virtual panel discussion involving all disciplines to connect directly with the presenters and to ask questions. The Bonanza launch is April 19th with the panel discussions taking place in May. So we're going to share with you a little Bonanza trailer that was created by our BA team to get people excited and engaged in our upcoming Bonanza. So I'm going to pass it over to Andrea to try to pull that up. Thanks, Andrea. So that is our presentation. Thank you, Nicole and Katie, and we'll take any questions if there's any.
Awesome. Thanks so much to the three of you. Is there any questions from any of our SEAC members? I'm excited to see the ABA 2.2 or the Bonanza 2.0. When you had it in the schools before all of this happened, I had toured around and it was pretty awesome. So I'm glad to see that it's back again, even if in a modified form. It was just really, really informational, and I had no idea some of the resources that existed. And there was a great turnout when I was there. So happy to see that it's again continuing in some form or another. I don't see any questions in the chat. Just going to ask one more time if anybody has any questions. No? Good. All right. Well, thanks so much, you guys. Have a great evening. And thanks again for being here with us tonight.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
See ya. Thanks, guys. Okay, moving right along, we're moving to item 3.1, which is the approval of the minutes from our February 22nd, 2021 meeting. Everybody would have received a copy of those. Was there any questions, comments on the minutes? Okay, could I get a motion to approve?
I can move that, Brenda. It's Maria.
Okay, thanks. Moved by Maria, seconded?
I can second it. It's Nancy.
Thanks, Nancy. Seconded by Nancy. Perfect. Item number 4, declarations of conflict of interest. Do we have any declarations this evening? Good. Okay. Item number 5, business arising from previous meetings. Does anybody have any questions on those items? Yeah, Maria, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Hi, sorry. So not specifically about items that are on the schedule, but a couple of things from previous meetings that I wanted to follow up on. So one was actually from last year when we reviewed the psych ed policy. It mentioned there that SEAC would be getting updates on the wait list 3 times a year. So I can't remember the last time we had one. I can't even remember if we've had one this year or not, but so I was just wondering about that. And then the other item is budget priority. So I understand that this is coming up in a future meeting, but I know everyone submitted their priorities, but I was just trying to understand the process because I looked at, the board had a survey that went out to everybody about budget priorities, and there were some very specific special education items there. So I'm just kind of wondering how that all fits together. And some of those items on there, they were very specific, and I don't remember them kind of being discussed at SEAC. So I'm just kind of trying to figure out how it all kind of fits together.
Okay. Do you want to do the first question first, and then we can move to the second one?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I don't have the answers. I just have the question.
Yeah, no, for sure. So I was wondering, with respect to the wait list updates, I know that those had been committed to, and you're right, I don't think we've seen one in a while, and I don't think Oliver's on the call this evening. But Stephanie, would you be able to give us an update on when we might expect the next update on the wait list?
Sure, I can do that. We did have an update in November, and I have an update in my SO report this evening. So we had committed to November, March, and I believe June. So this is the second of the 3.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. November's a long time ago for some of us.
No problem.
I couldn't remember.
No problem. And Oliver did present in November.
Right.
He's not presenting this evening, but I do have the update that he's provided for me for the report tonight.
Perfect. And then did you want to address the question around the budget priorities as well?
Sure. With respect to the survey that went out, we did collect some information just based on a number of meetings that we've had over the course of the year and some feedback from staff. And it was specific and it was also general enough. And there was also the opportunity for others. So if there's any member out there in the community who wants to give some feedback as well, we were very intentional about that. The email will be going out to SEAC later this week, and it will include some of the feedback that we received. We only received very limited feedback, so I would say if you're still interested in giving some suggestions, even following our meeting, Brenda, if you're fine into tomorrow, then we can send the SEAC suggestions. And the plan then will be in April to take a look at all of that information. So I don't have the information yet from the budget survey that went out to the greater community. And in April, we would like to take a look at that survey information, look at the feedback from SEAC, and then we also have Aaron coming to that meeting. So we do want to have a focused meeting on budget discussion. And that's what I can offer at this point with respect to the budget.
Okay. Maria, did you have a follow-up?
Oh, no, that's good. I was just trying to get some clarification on how it all kind of fit together. So
okay,
appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thanks, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Was there any other questions that anyone had on the business arising piece before we go to item number 6? No? Good. Okay. So item number 6 is, as we know, as everybody knows, we bring policies back for review by SEAC when there is a role for SEAC to play in reviewing those. And so policy number II-29, inclusion and range of placement options for identified exceptional students. I know that the red line version was sent out to members. I thought I would open it up this evening for anyone that wanted to give input. We can make a note of that and then forward that along as the comments from SEAC on this policy. Did anybody have any comments or questions on this. I didn't receive any feedback when it was sent out via email. So I thought we would give an opportunity to discuss it tonight if anybody has any anything they wanted to add or ask. Yeah, Maria, hand up. Go ahead.
Hi. Okay, so I didn't know that we were supposed to send anything in advance. But I did have, well, I have one kind of seemingly small, but I think not insignificant suggestion, and then kind of some broader comments. Under the principles, I think it's the 5th principle, it says that the default placement is the regular classroom. Now, I know we changed this in the spec ed plan. We talked about it, and even the ministry's wording around that is that the regular classroom is the first consideration or something along those lines. So it did get updated in the spec ed plan. So I think I'm not going to go over kind of the rationale for that. Hopefully everyone kind of remembers, but it would be consistent anyway with our spec ed plan. So that's just one thing. But I'm thinking when I look at this policy, it doesn't sort of cover what I would expect. I feel like it's missing some things, or the other way to look at it is when I read it, I don't think that we're complying with what it says. So it says that we offer a full, HCDSB offers a full range of placements. And it mentions the 5 that are in the ministry's guide, but those 5 aren't available to all students with all exceptionalities, as we know. I would think that it would make sense for the policy to actually list out what is available. And I also think that, and it doesn't state how the board addresses situations where maybe a placement is required, but it's not available in the board, or where there's, because we don't have spec ed classes for everything. It doesn't address lack of continuity. So when a placement is no longer provided by the board for all grades. And I think this is our opportunity to kind of review what the placement options are and whether associations have any recommendations to change those. So I don't know if this is still on the planned to be reviewed at the policy committee in April. It doesn't really give us much time to take a deep dive into it. I know that ABC certainly does feel that there are some gaps in there as to what's available for gifted students. I don't know if other associations feel that way as well. So I'm just wondering if it makes sense to bring it back for kind of a bigger discussion. And I will say too, in the ministry's standards for spec ed plans, it does talk about how SEAC is consulted on the range of placement options that are available. And I think this would be a good way to do that. I don't think our spec ed plan specifically addresses that, but I think that this policy being up is a good opportunity to review those. So that's kind of my broader, I could get into more detail, but I'm just wondering whether we want to have this come back. I don't know how others feel. Have this come back for a bigger discussion and maybe defer when it goes to policy committee. I don't know if that's still on the plan for April or not.
Okay, so a couple of things there. Stephanie, do you want to, the first thing I was thinking, Maria, is if you could send some of those comments you had. I wasn't able to write them all down. So if you could send them in an email, that would be helpful just to have them. Sort of those first things that you had mentioned about wording and such, that'd be helpful. Stephanie, I don't know if you want to address some of the other questions that Maria had about the policy itself and the piece around placements.
Sure, I can attempt to do that. I'll start by saying that it is on the agenda for the April policy meeting, and that's why we were asked as a SEAC to take a look at the policy. as that package is prepared for the April meeting. And I would mention that any of the changes that I've included here really is coming from a place of updating the policy. For example, the associated policies have been added. There were not any prior to this review of the policy. And any of the other language that's in the document has just been updated, like children, students, just for consistency. We do not include all of the classes or the class placements other than the ministry definitions, which are at the end of the document. It's page 404, where it talks about the placement options that the ministry identifies. So we have included those in the document because they remain consistent, and it does come right from the ministry document. In terms of our own placement options in HCDSB, we've not included those here because it is a policy document, so we don't tend to get into those types of operational details in a policy. With that said, I think it might be worth adding to our references, even the special education plan, as I was listening to Maria, because in the plan, it does get into those details. So if someone were reviewing this policy, and that's the intent, is they would have the opportunity to go to the spec ed plan and find more information outside of a policy document. I don't remember what the other questions were. So the range of placements, as I said, the ministry requirements are there. The others are identified in the plan. And you did make a point, Maria, about that 5th bullet, and I pulled up the plan at the same time, and I do see that the language has been updated, so we can update that language in the policy as well. It talks about a variety of placements rather than the default placement. I think it says the first placement option considered rather than a default, which is a little more positive. And I see Nancy has her hand up.
Yes. Nancy, you want to go ahead?
I was just going to suggest if there are changes that need to come from SEAC to be recommended to policy, obviously we would take those into consideration as this is specific to SEAC, and input from SEAC is of most importance. However, to get into the details of a policy here at this meeting, I think would probably take up a majority of the meeting. So I think I would suggest, and I'm at obviously your will, Brenda and Stephanie, that if that is the case and there is interest in going through this more and to make more wholesome recommendations other than what the department has already brought forward, I'm not sure where it falls on the schedule. I haven't looked to see. I'm not sure if it's on the April agenda. I don't think it is.
It is.
It is.
Yeah, it's April 13th.
So that's not going to happen beforehand. So I have a connection to have policy defer it to the May meeting if that is the will of SEAC, if there is more input that needs to be worked through with staff from a perspective of suggestions coming from SEAC.
Right, so that, oh yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, if I could, if there's any feedback, it is still March 22nd. So as I said, this was a preliminary review, and if Brenda, Maria, if you're in agreement and you want to share any of the suggestions, you can share them with staff and we can make any further adjustments if that's required and perhaps share the policy back. Or we can speak to Nancy and the committee about deferring it to May. Those would be the two options.
Yeah, and so I agree with Nancy that we don't have time to get into more deeper discussion. That's why I did say maybe to defer it. So I'm, whether it's more time on the next agenda or, we share our feedback through email, I'm open to, if other associations don't have anything they want to bring forward, then, we could do it that way. I'm open to whichever way, but, we do feel there are some gaps for our population. So I think this is the opportunity to address it. So I'm not sure how.
Okay, Nancy, you had your hand up again?
Sorry, I just can't find my mute button quick enough. I was just also going to state too, as I was trying to look, Stephanie, maybe you can help me, is procedurally, what goes with this policy? I know the psych ed assessment for individual students in the equity inclusion education go with it, but is there no not policies, procedures that go with this policy as well?
There's not a procedure per se, because I would say that the special education plan and our guide to special education would be those corresponding documents.
That would link to it.
Yeah, because it's pretty extensive information.
Right.
I don't know that we would capture it really in a procedure. This is the overarching policy that really drives those other plans, and that's why my other suggestion was to include the spec ed plan right to the references as well.
Right, and that was going to be my point is we need to make sure that we're looking at it in conjunction. It's not just this policy, it's the other documents that go with it. So if there's something missing, or we think that there's something missing in here, it might be in those other documents. So it might be worthwhile to take a step back and have a look at it a little later.
Sure.
Maria, you have a hand up again?
Yeah, I think the other comment that I wanted to actually had quite a bit on this, but so I might be forgetting, but something that I just remembered. I think it would be helpful. So first of all, I think it would just be good to be clear that, you know, we don't offer all 5 for everything. So whether that's through a link to the spec ed plan or a procedure or whatever. But I think the other thing that would be helpful would be clearly outlining the IPRC process. And I looked even in the spec ed plan, it refers back to the regulation. And I know that, you know, we basically follow the regulation, or that's the policy, right, is to follow the regulation. But I think it might be helpful, and we do see this in other policies and procedures. I think it would be helpful to really outline the requirements of the regulation, because I will share with you that I have heard more than one case, not just for gifted students, but other students as well, that have received misinformation even from staff. So there's been more than one case of parents being told, oh no, your child won't be identified without an IPRC ever being convened. And that's, I mean, the purpose of the IPRC is to make that decision, right? So I think it might be helpful, and I think it would fit in this policy to sort of outline, you know, if you feel your child needs special education services, this is what you do, and this is what you can expect. And I think that might even clarify it for some staff, not spec ed staff maybe, but staff at the school level. I don't think that they always understand. I've heard some things that are definitely not correct, and maybe at the time I didn't even know they weren't correct, but that's just another piece. And I'm happy to, as you asked at the beginning, Brenda, to articulate all this in a written form. That's not a problem. But I just wanted to put that out there as well, because that's a very broad thing that I think would be helpful. Okay. Does anybody else have any comments on how they want to handle this? You know, certainly if there's, you know, if there's a majority of the members here that would like to see this brought back for a more fulsome discussion at our next board meeting, we can, or our next, SEAC meeting, we can do that. Failing that, if not, what I would say is, you know, if people want to take the time to review the policy as you sort of have begun to do, Maria, and send it in via email, then it just gives a chance for staff to take a look at it. Like Stephanie said, review it, look at the comments, and then sort of decide where it goes from there. And then, you know, depending on the type of feedback that we have, I'm just spitballing this, we may need to bring it back to SEAC to have another look at prior to it going to the policy meeting, or it might be items that it doesn't need to come back for, that they could, you know, maybe be accommodated. So, and we could certainly send back out some of those suggested changes to everybody prior to the policy meeting to take a look at. So there's a couple of different ways that we can handle it. You know, again, I'm happy to take time at the next SEAC meeting if that's where people want to spend some time. And if not, then I would encourage everyone to send it in an email form. And then, like I said, staff can discuss it. Does anybody have any feedback on that? I'll just say, Brenda, I'm happy with whichever way we do it. And so I don't know if others want to share their opinion, but I'm flexible.
Okay. I'm always cognizant, and I don't, again, you know what? I'm happy to, you know, we're happy to put anything on the agenda. But, you know, just knowing how much we have, if there's, you know, not a lot of interest, I don't want to take up too much time from members, but if there is a lot of interest, then let's put it on there. So if anybody wants to comment. If not, then we can just do it via email.
It's always a bit of a fine line, isn't it, Brenda? Like, you know, you don't want to spend a lot of time on things that maybe not everyone wants to spend time on, but we also don't want to do it outside of SEAC because that's why we're here. So
agree.
You know.
Yeah, I agree. I just, you know what, it's more, it's not that I don't want to spend time on it. It's just more that, you know, they're just, anyways, yeah.
I meant time in the meeting more so than anything else.
What was that?
I meant like time in the meeting as opposed to time in general. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I mean. We have to sort of shift things around if we wanted to put that in there. And again, that's okay. I know that we have budget coming in April. I can't remember what else we have on there. But again, if we wanted to move things around to make room for that, because that was a priority for SEAC members, happy to do that. If there is an opportunity for us to do this via email, because there isn't a lot of feedback outside of a couple of people, then we could do that. And, you know, again, possibly bring that back for review before it going to the policy meeting. Stephanie, do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm happy, Brenda, if there's any feedback that wants to come my way via email. I think that'll give us the opportunity. And like I said, I still feel like we have time, although we do need to get the information along in the next week or so, and we can work from the email. I also wanted to point out, and I did hear Maria's point about the IPRC process. We can take a look at that, but I did add to the reference just as information when you are reviewing the policy. I included the policy document, which is a ministry document, special education in Ontario, kindergarten to grade 12, and that was missing. And I think it's a really important read, and it does go into very much a lot of detail around the IPRC process as well. So if you want to send the emails, I'd say if there's, you know, even within a week, because then we can make any changes, and I'm happy to send the revised version to SEAC, and then maybe we can determine at that point if everyone's satisfied, or if not, and we want to bring it back to the April SEAC meeting, then we can do that at that time.
Yeah, that sounds great. Diane, you have your hand up. Thanks, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. With regard to this, I don't have any problem discussing it as much as anyone wishes to discuss it, but I think that anything that is agreed upon or anything that goes from this group to the policy committee should go via a resolution of SEAC. That's about it.
Okay. Yeah, that's great, Diane. I appreciate that. That's a very good point. Jessica, did you have a comment or a question?
Yes, just a quick comment. Thank you, Stephanie. I think that's a great idea that you're adding those references. But just from a parent's perspective, when we are adding those references, a parent, instead of having to go through the entire policy guide, if you can just, not a footnote per se, but if you just isolate placement offered by the board, spec get plan, page number, IPRC process, policy guide, section number, I think that will be even more so helpful in case the parents are searching the policy for information.
Sure, we can do that when it's applicable. We have done that with the Ontario regulations and the Ed Act reference that I included there, where the definition of an exceptional pupil is found. I put exactly where you could find it. So if it does pertain and there's an area that we can point it out in the policy document, we can do that for sure. And then also offer it in its entirety so people have the fulsome document.
Thank you.
And they're all hyperlinked as well, just as another point, so people can click and it'll take them right to the document.
Did you have a follow-up, Jessica?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, let me just grab the chat here. Maria, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just really quickly. I appreciate that those references are in there, and I noticed that there were some new things added in, which is great. I guess my point is that you know, not everyone's going to go through. They're not going to necessarily know how to find it. Some of the stuff's hard to read. I just think there's a few points that would be good, and I can put this in my written piece. There's a few points that would be good to really highlight. Like if a parent asks for an IPRC, the board is required to provide one. I don't know that everyone knows that. So anyways, I can provide more detail separately, but that's all I wanted to reiterate.
Okay. So I think let's send it back via email. Let's see where we get with some of the comments that have come back. Diane, your point is well taken. If we need to bring that back to SEAC to have the approval of SEAC before forwarding those suggestions onto the committee, we can do that. So I think that's the best place to start is why don't we start with sending those comments in if people have them, and we can share those with staff and then go from there.
Sounds good to me, Brenda.
Maria, is that good with you?
Yes, sorry.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's okay.
absolutely. Yeah.
No worries. Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm just going to move on to action and information items. So 7.1, the Transition Planning Subcommittee had a meeting. Stephanie Ballo and Jody O'Reilly will give an update for that, and those documents were included in the meeting package.
Thanks, Brenda. I'm going to pass it on to Jody, who's going to lead the presentation, but I did want to thank the subcommittee for their efforts in preparing some very rich conversation, and which helped with the development of this presentation. We had Brenda and Maria, Jody, and we had two of our curriculum or our spec ed consultants, Karen McCarthy and Claudia Bowman, involved in the work. And I'll pass it along to Jody.
Thanks, Stephanie. I think, Andrew, you're going to throw up. Have you pulled it up?
It's there, Jody. Can you see it?
Yeah, I see it now. Thanks.
Okay.
Yes. We met as a subcommittee to discuss transition support and how we support transition students. So our starting point was to review the SEAC Association report from the December SEAC meeting. And if you'll recall, as a result of the report, it was determined that a subcommittee would be formed to look at various recommendations. And it was agreed that SEAC, we would look at our transition practices in general. So our framework going into the meeting was to use that report to generate discussions related to general transitions in our board and how we support and plan for students. The purpose of this report that I'm giving this evening is to provide an update to you, the SEAC members, with regards to our first subcommittee meeting. So the first thing we looked at was the transition meeting versus an IPRC. And again, as Stephanie mentioned there, we did have some good discussion among many of the points. And in the transition section of our special education plan, it says that we hold an IPRC to support the transition, which is one part of what we do. But the suggestion was made to more clearly articulate in our plan that we actually host an IPRC and a transition meeting at the same time when a student is moving from grade 8 to grade 9 or into or out of a specialized class. So there was good discussion around our practices, which is to include both, but they are two distinct meetings in one. And the purpose of that is really to help parents having to attend two different meetings. The outcome of this discussion was that there can be changes in administrators, as you know, with different knowledge and comfort around hosting IPRCs and transition meetings for that matter. And so it would benefit everyone to have a transition checklist as a reference to ensure that administrators and staff cover everything required during the meeting time. So what we'll do as a special education department is create a transition checklist that can then be shared with our administrators and CERTs. And then we are also going to update the spec ed plan to identify that they are two distinct processes within one meeting. The next point we looked at was open houses for specialized classes. So some key points from this discussion included that there needs to be consistent messaging and equitable access to all families around the different placement options for students who are newly identified. As we know, it's a lot of information coming to parents at once. So we wanted to ensure that there was consistent messaging to our parents around this. We also discussed that the virtual open houses worked and they support busy working families, so consideration should be given to continue this past this year. In addition, we wanted to make sure that all parents are aware of you, SEAC, what you do, associations you represent, and all the good work that goes on with SEAC. So there was a number of outcome items from that discussion. The first is to support information for parents related to the different placement options. We're going to create an infographic for each ministry specific exceptionality, and we're going to start with gifted. So the infographic will ensure that parents have equitable and consistent information on the different placement options available based on the specific identification. In addition, we are in the process of updating the parent guide to special education. And once we have a draft, we will share that with you. So these will be printed and distributed to schools. We do have a parent guide on our SpecEd website, but we would like to print and distribute these brochures. And I believe Stephanie shared that with you at a previous SEAC meeting. So we're going to print them and share them with schools to be able to share with parents. We're going to include transition checklist. In the transition checklist from the previous slide that I spoke about, families have received the parent guide. We want to make sure the parents do have these guides in their hands. So we will make sure to include that on the transition checklist. Open houses will be virtual this year. They were virtual last year, and we're going to look at ways we can support virtual delivery next year as well. So we know in person is good, but virtual is also has some benefits as well. We do have this, but we're going to continue the practice of consistent presentations for each class with school-specific information. So the general overarching ideas in each of the specialized classes, the presentation is the same. They'll have school-specific information and then an opportunity for parents to follow up with questions after the open house. And of course, we're going to include the new SEAC video and any of the open houses that we offer where parents are invited, including our kindergarten information night that is this Wednesday at 7 o'clock. So we will include the SEAC video there and in any other presentations that we do for parents. The next thing we looked at was the grade 8 to grade 9 transition information sharing. So the discussion we had was that planning for grade 9 should begin early enough so that students and parents have enough time to look into the programs they are interested in taking. Students also need to be invited to the different transition events that occur at their home school and or school they are considering based on programs they are interested in taking. For example, IB, AP, we talked about Chisholm. So there's different programs we offer across the board, and students need to be invited to the various events that happen at those schools. So we're going to continue to message to schools, and in particularly secondary DHs and elementary sets for each specialized class, that they need to connect to ensure that that information is being shared. And we need to continue to invite students to the information evenings regarding the different programs that are offered in our high schools. The last consideration that we looked at was just transitions in general. As we know, transitioning into kindergarten as an example, or to a new school, from grade 8 to grade 9, from grade to grade, those can be challenging times for parents and students. So we thought we would include transition frequently asked questions on the board website. We are looking, as I mentioned, the parent guide, the board website, SpecEd plan, it's all being updated right now. So as part of that update, we will look to add a frequently asked questions on transitions at the major points, that entry to school, grade to grade, grade 8 to grade 9, and so on, to help support our parents and families with the transitions. So that is everything.
Great, thanks so much, Jody. It was a great meeting as well. Yes. So thanks for summarizing that.
No problem.
Does anybody have any questions at all? I know that transitions is always a really big piece around the table, but it looks like some great work has begun, and I think probably identifying some of the areas. Yeah, Maria?
Hi, yeah, so I wanted to really thank staff for all the work that went into this and addressing the issues that we had raised. It was a great meeting for sure. I really like the ideas of the infographics and the checklists as ways to address some of the things. One thing I kind of realized after the meeting that maybe I should have been more specific about, and then when I see the document here, it comes up again. So I know that our concerns were really specific to students having sort of 3 transitions at one time, from special education class to regular class, from high school, elementary to high school, and changing schools. So that's kind of in the outcome here. It talks about messaging to department heads and elementary sets for each specialized class, but that transition from grade 8 to grade 9, even if you're going from regular class to regular class, is still really significant. And so I just would like to suggest that also happened to that messaging happened to for elementary certs. so that the students in the regular class are getting that same information and the same lead time in their planning and all of that. And just the other thing, up above it says planning for grade 9 should begin early enough, etc. I think it might be helpful to be more specific, because early enough is really subject to interpretation. And I think in our meeting we talked about, grade 7. We were advocating for grade, like end of grade 6 or whatever, but I think there was consensus that grade 7 was a good time. So maybe just something a bit more specific, because to some people early enough might be grade 8, and I don't think that's early enough. So those are just my additional comments.
Thanks, Maria. That's a fair point. I didn't go into detail as I was summarizing the information, but we did discuss, as you mentioned, end of grade 6, beginning of grade 7. So that messaging from staff, from our special education department to staff, will continue. Certainly, yeah. And point taken about the information given to CERTs as well about the different programs and events that are happening. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
No problem. I thought about it a little bit after, and I thought, were we just focusing on the special education classes? And it would be good to be broader. So
sure.
That's it.
Great. Thank you. Is there any other questions? No? Okay. Thanks, Jody.
Thank you.
We'll move along to 7.2, Special Education Plan Subcommittee Update. Stephanie?
Yep. Thanks, Brenda. And thanks, Jody, for summarizing our meeting. It was a good meeting. So with respect to the special education plan, we did have our first subcommittee meeting, and I did share a draft of a document that we discussed the other day in our meeting. And maybe just before I get into the draft itself, just an overview of our timeline. So we did have our first committee meeting on the 17th. And then the plan for today, obviously, was to share the draft with SEAC, and we did email it in advance. You received it last Thursday, so hopefully you've had some time to review it. The plan moving forward is to send an email to all of SEAC tomorrow to gather input on the special education plan, which is what we had decided at our last meeting, that rather than going through the plan at each meeting, we would give SEAC the opportunity to provide some feedback using a form. So you can look for that form. It will be coming tomorrow to you. The other item for tomorrow this week is we will be consulting with Strategic Communications to highlight on the board website how members of the community can provide input on the plan, and we'll get into the specifics in the draft, but that's another to do for us. And then from March through to April, the staff will continue to review the current plan that we have. They've already started reviewing it from front to back. And we'll take a look at the SEAC input that is shared with us, and we do encourage you to participate in that, as well as any community feedback that we receive, and then we'll continue to make any further modifications if needed. And then the plan would be for our April meeting that we would take a look at the SEAC input. And the week of May 3rd, we are coming together as another subcommittee meeting to take a look at all of the feedback and make any final modifications, with the goal of sending the plan to SEAC in advance of our May 31st meeting, and sharing either a red line version, depending on how much red there is, or a summary of the changes, which is sometimes easier for the reader. And you would have that in advance of our May meeting. And if we need the time in June, we'll use the time in June. But the goal is to have everything done by May 31st. And then once we have all the content finalized, I had shared a sample, I think at our last meeting, of a visual and infographic, and we'll work on that over the summer. So it will be ready for September. So that's just an overview of what our process is going to be in terms of timing. So on the form that you have there on the document, and before I start, I do want to thank the committee. So we had both Rick and Maria from SEAC join our committee. And we had Jody, Denise, and two of our consultants, Riona Richardson and Ashley Fliss, and myself, who worked through the document. So our focus really was on the consultation process, and I've included a few points at the beginning of the document. We did do quite a review of a number of other plans and found some consistent practices that we thought would be helpful for our plan as well. So some very simple things, like the first point is to move the consultation process to the beginning of the document. Currently, it's on, I think, page 70 of our document, so it does make sense to front load it, and it would be in the second section following the introduction and overview. And then another simple change is to add a separate title or heading to the actual section. Currently, it says it's under SEAC, and it's not as clear. So in the new plan, it'll be in the second section with the title there, Special Education Plan Consultation Process. So what I've included is some red line changes, and the black print is what's currently in the plan. And we rearranged some of the pieces just so that it was clear. And you can see that the title in of itself, Timelines and Methods Regarding the Consultation Process on the Special Education Plan, I removed of SEAC because we do get into SEAC's involvement, of course, but we also talk about the community consultation process in of itself. So in the first paragraph, it was in the original plan. It really speaks to the historical perspective, and I think it's important to keep that. And the next paragraph is also part of the original plan, and it talks about each board's requirement to ensure that the updated and comprehensive information regarding special education programs and services is made available to the community, and that it's accomplished through the special education plan annually. So that piece about annually is very important. The next paragraph, you can see it there. It says, in developing and modifying the special education plan annually, HCDSB takes into consideration feedback from multiple sources, including the board's SEAC and community stakeholders on a continuous basis throughout the year. And I've delineated the section into two parts. So number one speaks specifically to SEAC's involvement in the annual review. And then number two, it's a separate section that speaks to the community consultation process. So if we take a look at number one, which is SEAC's involvement, again, what's there is what is currently in our plan. Currently in our plan, though, the title is not SEAC's involvement. I think it's the community consultation. So this speaks specifically to the role of SEAC. Special education as plan is informed by SEAC through information and opportunities for feedback and consideration on presentations and staff reports at monthly public meetings of the SEAC, through local association reports, information, subcommittee updates, and reports from other stakeholder meetings, through discussions, presentations, and interactions between SEAC representative, trustees, and staff, and through SEAC webinars, goals, and priorities, including SEAC budget priorities. Again, all those points are in the current plan. Where we've added are the subsequent 3 points that are specific to SEAC. So SEAC is involved through the participation of SEAC members in various subcommittees with special education staff, including a subcommittee to review the plan. That's new this year. The SEAC input on annual review of special education plan form is provided to all members, and that's the form that we will be sharing with SEAC tomorrow so that you can provide your individualized feedback. And then the last bullet is the review of drafts and receipt of the proposed final version of the document. And again, our goal is to get that to SEAC by May 31st. And then the second section there actually speaks to the community consultation process. And it's all new content, I would say. So special education plan is informed by the community through SEAC members at formal association meetings or informal conversations with the community, including parents and guardians. And we do have a lot of value in those conversations, and they're happening all the time through school and board level staff who have ongoing formal and informal communication and feedback from parents, guardians, students, and community agencies. We have quite a bit of staff that sit on various tables with our community partners. The plan is informed by the community through feedback to special education related questions that are embedded in various board and school surveys and consultation processes. So we do, as you've seen with even the budget survey that went out, whenever there is a question that's included with respect to special education, we encourage our community partners to participate in that. the review of SEAC meeting recordings, minutes, and agenda materials, as well as the parent guide to special education as points of reference for feedback. We need our community to know what they're providing feedback on. So that's a very important point. And you can see I just put in brackets there, insert the links. So when someone is reviewing the SEAC or the special education plan, they can go right to the link and they'll be able to access it easily. And then what we've added is the use of the SEAC email. So we do have a SEAC email. It's on our SEAC page. It's also been added to our SEAC meeting page so that people can ask questions. And the point is that the SEAC email is provided on the plan, and people can provide feedback. They can include questions or comments, and that can be done at any time in the school year. And then finally, a summary of the feedback that is received through the email or in other capacities will be collated and shared accordingly. And it is a requirement that the feedback is included in the special education plan. So that's also a consideration for us as a staff. And then I've left the last piece that was in the original plan. I think it is important to note that a function of the special education leadership team, including myself, our coordinator, consultants, clinical chiefs, managers, we meet very regularly to discuss and implement programs and services, PPMs that come from the ministry and other initiatives, as well as any relevant research. And all of these pieces also inform the plan. So on behalf of our subcommittee, I did want to share that draft with SEAC, and I guess we're open to any comments or questions.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. That's a lot of work. So it looks like a really productive meeting, and it looks like you got a lot of things done. So thank you so much for that. Does anybody have any questions at all for what Stephanie's presented? Maria?
Hi, yeah, another great meeting for sure, and appreciate all the updates that were done to this section. And I think having it at the beginning of the plan is a great idea because it's sort of what's feeding the plan, right? So it's at the start. One question I had, and I did bring it up at the end of our meeting, so I'm not sure where we're at with it. The other part of the standard, the ministry standard for this piece is information on the results of any internal or external reviews of existing programs and services. So I don't think that's been added, but and I don't know what we have this year, if there is anything, but that's another important piece, I think, to this section. So I'm not sure where we're at.
Stephanie, did you want to answer that?
I think I would just ask for some clarification. So the last bullet talks about a summary of feedback received will be collated and shared accordingly. So are you referring to surveys, information? Because any information that feeds the plan, we would include like a high-level summary right inside of our plan.
Right. So if I'm just looking at the standard, it's on page B3. So of the ministry, the policy and resource guide. Mm-hmm. So there's a bullet that says the summary of feedback received as a result of consultation with members of the community. So I think that's what you're referring to there.
Yes.
And then, yeah, and then below that, there's another paragraph that says, the special education plan must also provide information on the results of any internal or external reviews of existing special education programs and services, etc. A list of internal and external reviews that are planned for the following year. So I see that as something separate. That's something more that the board, whether it's surveys or whatever reviews the board might be doing of its spec ed programs and services. So I think that's separate from the community piece. That's how I read it.
Yeah, and I suppose it's a bullet that we could add to the summary of the feedback because it comes right out of the standard. I'm reading it as well. And the requirement is a list. So a list of internal and external review of the board's special education programs and services that are planned for the following year must be included. So I don't think that's a problem if we knew in advance that we were going to be making any changes to programs and services as a result of the consultation and going through the review of the plan, then we would include that.
Well, I think it's a list for what's coming up, but then it's also information on the results of what's happened in the prior year. And I have seen that actually in other boards' plans where they'll summarize, you know, they did a survey and this is kind of the results and this is how it informed the plan. So
right. And I think I'm saying the same thing. So if we had a survey that went out, we would include sort of the overarching summary of that survey, what the results are, right? Not the actual survey itself, but the highlights from the survey and how those highlights feed our programs and services.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's maybe a separate section to this, like subsection to this section.
I think that we could add it at the end where we have the other note. We'll rework it.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of gets tacked on to the summary of the feedback because it's the very next point in the ministry document, but we can add it.
Okay. Thanks.
Other than that, I think that the process itself with the two parts being separated, I think it helps be explicit with what the plan is.
Yeah, I agree. I really like that. And a lot of the changes are great that were made. So
thank you.
Appreciate the work there.
Thank you.
Great. Is there any other questions? Sorry, Stephanie.
No, I was going to say that's it for me. Thanks.
Okay. Well, you're up again, so.
Okay. I'm just going to keep talking here.
It's the Stephanie meeting tonight.
That's why I keep asking questions to give her a break.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're up next, 7.3, Stephanie, with the SEAC meeting evaluation.
Okay, great. So I will start by saying that we had a very low response rate, and I am mindful of that because we only had 4 responses that were received of 15. We did indicate in the email that went out that the responses are anonymous, and we obviously want to respect that. We took a look at each of the sections, and as has happened in the past, we've included some common themes or a common theme or two in each of the areas as best as we could based on, again, the low response rate and being respectful of those people who did participate. So in the section with respect to continue, we went in the order of continue, start, and stop. Continue, the common theme was to continue with presentations from staff. So it is good to hear that they are well received. And I did want to point out that the presentation that we had earlier from our BAs was one of the top topics that we got feedback when the survey went out to SEAC. That was one of the top 3 areas of interest. So we were happy that we were able to offer that tonight. The next is start. So the common theme was to maintain timelines on the agenda and to keep the meetings to a 9 o'clock end time. I'm looking at the clock right now. Some suggestions included using time effectively, adhering to the allotted time on the agenda item, and just being concise with comments. And another point under START was to focus on the action plan or goals that are based on timely data and survey responses. Under STOP, the common theme from the responses was to stop going over the allotted time established on the agenda. So there are some concerns with maintaining the agenda and to have more participation from members and to learn and hear more from a variety of associations. And those are really the 3 key common themes under those areas without going into the details of the responses.
Okay, perfect. Thanks so much, Stephanie.
You're welcome.
Was there any questions on that at all? Seems pretty straightforward, and we can make a note of that. And I certainly appreciate the comments with respect to the agenda. And you know, I definitely feel the same. We always have so much on our agenda to get through. And, I find that we sometimes get on a topic and it takes a lot of conversation that we don't expect. So I'll try to do a better job of taking a look at how much we're putting on there so that we can be a little more realistic about the time being allocated. And if we anticipate that there's going to be a topic that's going to go over, that we prepare for that. So I can definitely commit to trying to work on that piece from an agenda perspective. Was there any other questions on the meeting evaluation results? No. Okay. Stephanie, you're up again for 8.1 for the superintendent's report.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
No problem. So I will start with a couple of good news items. I think that's always important. So yesterday was World Down Syndrome Day, and it was great to see the number of schools that celebrated and showed their support by rocking their socks, either last week or plans for this week. Many of the schools shared their celebrations on social media platforms such as Twitter. It was excellent to see the response across the system. Also, congratulations to Denise, who's going to be embarrassed by this, but to Denise, our chief speech pathologist, and our speech and language department at large, who really have done a great job. They are the recipients of the Unsung Hero Award from the School of Rehabilitation Science at McMaster University. This award recognizes those who have made a special contribution to the School of Rehab. In particular, those who go above and beyond the call of duty. So I'm really proud of the speech and language team. As I said, they are involved in ways I never even realized that they were involved in. So very well earned, and congratulations to that team. Staff professional development and training. We had our certs, they were involved. We had two separate cert meetings. One was for new certs, and the topic for the new certs was to focus on the introduction to ABA and HCDSB transition process from preschool to post-secondary. So that's definitely a very important topic that we want our new certs to be very well aware of. For all of our elementary certs and sets at our recent PD sessions, we had topics such as virtual resources, the entry process into specialized classes, the SEA showcase, which is upcoming, and a CATIA presentation from iCerts and the psych department. The selective mutism training was very well attended by our iCerts as well as our speech and language staff. And furthermore, our speech and language pathologists and CDAs have completed professional development on the Story Champs program that they're using to support narrative development. With respect to mental health and well-being, the mental health team is offering a parent information series. I know I have spoken to it in the past. The communication did go out across the system over the weekend. These sessions will be offered once a week on various topics related to mental health, well-being, and parenting for 6 consecutive weeks. All of the presentations will be recorded live, and a link to each live session will be posted on the board's homepage the day of the scheduled presentation. The recorded presentation will also be available on the board's website and YouTube channel for later viewing. In addition, 3 professional development sessions for the Youth Leadership Program for newcomer youth have been presented. I do want to thank our team who have been responsive to the needs of our system and for their collaboration with our settlement worker. They've done 3 presentations. The first was done by the social work team. It was a presentation on mental health resources. The second was done by our CYC department. The topic was bullying, social isolation, and healthy relationships. And the third presentation was done by the psychology department on the topic of anxiety and how to manage it. Again, they were very well received by our youth settlement students, and we were able to support those newcomers, which is great. With respect to our child and youth counselors, they are taking the lead on implementing a new program. It's called the SNAP program, Stop Now and Plan. It's an evidence-based program, and it's new to our board. It is a preventative, proactive, self-regulation, and conflict resolution program for children who are aged 6 to 12. The program will run once a week for 13 weeks in the classroom, and it is delivered by a child and youth counselor, and the teacher is there to support as well. We are starting with a pilot. It will be 3 phases. So we are starting in March until December of 2021 with full implementation by January of 2022. We're piloting the program in grade 3 classes to start, as it best aligns with our board's model of focused support for K-3. And we are looking forward, and our principals and all of our teams have had training. So it is, we're in the process of rolling that out right now as we speak. From psychology, we have a committee of chiefs, psych staff, social workers, and CYCs. They are all revising the life promotion suicide response protocol. Our clinical staff is participating in an exploration of new brief digital interventions and associated progress monitoring tools under the guidance from School Mental Health Ontario and Harvard University. And then lastly, the update with the psych assessments. The staff are predominantly working on February 2020 referrals, which corresponds to a wait time of approximately 13 months. It is worth noting from Oliver that the team meet monthly to discuss any variability in wait times. So as I mentioned earlier, the updates are provided in November, March, and June. So a final update in June will be forthcoming. With respect to our educational assistants, our itinerant EAs are continuing to work on the Relias training, which is ABA training, with our behavior analysts, and are working on Boardmaker 7 training in schools, and continue to support school sites with any necessary coaching. And I think that's it, Brenda. That was the last point on my report. And I need a drink of water.
Thank you so much. I know when I looked at the agenda, I was like, okay.
You know what? I'm really proud of the team. We've been really doing a lot of new things and interesting things, and everybody's doing a great job. So I'm really proud of everybody's participation in that.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to hear all about what's happening, because this is really the only chance we get. Sometimes these things just don't make it to social media or the bigger picture for whatever reason. And so it's really great to be able to hear some of those things that are happening. And this is a perfect forum for that. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Andrea Ricci, you have your hand up. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I have a question on the psych ed wait times. So with the 13-month wait time, how is that trending year over year? Is that trending up, and by how many months?
I don't know that I have that information, and I wouldn't want to misrepresent, and I don't know that Oliver is on the call. Jody, do you have any information on that?
Sorry, Stephanie. No, I don't have information with me right now, and I'm not sure Oliver is here. Oliver is here.
Oh, he's here. Perfect. Oliver.
Go ahead, Oliver.
Yes, thank you. We all know that we are in unprecedented times, and so it shouldn't be surprising that the trend is going up. We were at about 9 months last year, and therefore we're up at this point.
So thanks for providing that clarity. So are there specific efforts, added efforts being put in place to help bring that down?
Go ahead, Oliver.
I'm sure, like everybody can appreciate that all of our staff are doing their best to bring those times down. I'm also sure that everybody understands that we have limitations and restrictions on our ability to do assessments, meaning getting into schools. We can only go into one school on a day, whereas previously we could go to 2 schools or more schools in a day if that was helpful to be efficient. We don't have those capabilities anymore at this point. We have some efficiencies that we have built up during the year in terms of doing meetings online, parent meetings and school meetings online, so the travel time is reduced, and we are early adopters of online questionnaires distribution that make it possible to have instant data collection on social emotional attention and other capabilities for students. So we've done a lot of work in terms of making our assessments almost pandemic proof. We're using digital instruments to assess that, use iPads for most of the assessment activities so as to reduce the contact surfaces and direct interaction between the student and the psychological assessor. We wear face masks and other PPEs, and as well use voice amplifiers. All of these things, as you can imagine, make it a bit more complex to do these assessments. We are one staff short of our contingent of what we have in terms of FTE. We have not been able to fill that position in spite of different attempts throughout the year. It is difficult to attract new staff members to our board. Our pay scale is below other boards. And we've also made efforts to recruit interns to assist with the assessment. We currently have 2 interns in the program that help perform assessments. And so we're doing everything we can to reduce wait times. But as I said, I don't think this is a good year to do comparisons and measure performance compared to other years because of the circumstances that we are in. We had to interrupt assessments at some point because we weren't able to go into the schools. So I think that needs to be considered as well.
Thanks, Oliver. Did you have another follow-up, Andrea?
No, that's good. It's good to hear that you've been making changes to make things more efficient and getting support where you can. So I appreciate the update. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thanks again, Oliver. Okay, next up we have the trustee report. Nancy, are you available?
I am.
Great.
Thank you, Brenda. So an update, we had 2 board meetings since our last SEAC meeting on March 2nd, and I believe it was March 16th. I apologize because one of the items, I don't have the exact motion with me, but I will speak to it. So we had amendments to a borrowing resolution to increase our ability to have access for a line of credit for purchasing land for new builds. We've appointed the external auditors again for a period, I believe, extension of 1 year with KPMG. Student mental health, we have a motion, whereas it was brought to the table to have mental health programs that are available online be looked at, and they'll be reported back on, I believe, at the April meeting, the first meeting in April. Student inclusive racial and cultural curriculum letter. It was also passed that as a board, we will be writing to the Minister of Education to include requesting them to update curriculum so that it is inclusive of all groups. French immersion regional expansion. So the motion, and it was revised a couple of times, and I do not have the revised motion, but essentially it's the expansion of the French immersion program to eliminate wait list as of the 2022 school year, and that the board would work towards that. Other than that, there were no other motions that were brought forward. We continue to work on our strategic plan. We have an upcoming meeting. It hasn't been set yet, but as it is, we will keep you posted on that. And in April, we have I believe two board meetings, and I believe there will be a policy meeting the week of March break, the new March break, as we did not have a policy meeting this March. And that's all respectfully submitted to the SEAC committee.
Great, thanks so much, Nancy. Is there any questions at all on the trustee report? Maria?
I just have one quick one. And it's trying to understand what's going on with French immersion. If you're not watching it closely, it just seems to keep coming back. And but I'm just wondering, is transportation provided? Like, I know for extended French, because my son was in it, there was transportation. Is there transportation for the early French? And now that it's being expanded, like, so would that be, I guess, expanded as well? And if so, do we have a cost on that? Because I didn't see any costs really associated with these motions.
Those are all good questions, Maria. Sorry, through you, is this okay, Brenda?
Yeah, of course,
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, these are all good questions. This was not part of it. Essentially, and Brenda, you can help. I was on vacation last week when I was listening into the meeting, so I didn't have as much, like I don't have the written down piece of the actual revised motion. But my understanding is it's the director of education will have discretion. So in regards to costs, that will come back before anything is implemented or expanded. Essentially, with the expansion of the program, there'll be more home schools. So based on boundaries. So I'm not sure what the transportation piece will look like. We didn't get into that part of the motion. Strictly, it was about eliminating the wait list. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brenda.
So
yeah, that's correct. Sorry, go ahead.
So I just want to clarify. So it is currently provided for early French as well as extended French, correct?
Yes, that's our current policy.
So presumably, unless there's a motion made, that would extend to the new sites. But I hear what you're saying, that there may be less transportation needed because there's more sites. Correct. Is that a good summary?
Correct. And I do. Yes, okay. And I do have I got the resolved motion. I was hoping it would come to me, and it just dung in. You just got the ding that it came in. So that the Board of Trustees directs the Director of Education and Secretary of the Board to undertake the expansion of the French immersion program by satisfying all registrations annually in each region each year starting in the 2022-2023. So at this point, we don't know what the transportation will look like. So I'm assuming what will happen is the way I understand the resolution to go is that it'll be brought back to the board to say, this is our plan and this is how we're going to do it. If there is a huge increase in cost, it would have to come back to the board for approval.
Well, if I could just make a comment, I find it a little troubling, to be honest, that something like that would be passed without the cost, because that should be a consideration, especially for something that's optional. But I guess we'll see how it evolves.
Maria, we don't disagree with you. However, we have spent a lot of time on French.
I know.
There are so many other items that we need to get to and that we should be dealing to. I don't know if you noticed, like there's been 3 meetings now where we haven't been able to get to the back to school report and what's happening in our schools. So the way it's written, it will come back to the board. There's no way that our Director of Education is going to say we're going to, offer transportation at a triple the cost without coming back to consult to the board. And that's just something that will have to be looked at, right? There'll have to be a balance.
Yeah, and like I haven't been following it that closely because there's only so many hours in the day, but I do notice that it sort of keeps coming back, and I don't really understand everything that's been going on, but I hear you.
Great, thanks, Nancy. Is there any other questions on the trustee report? Nope. Okay. I'm just looking at the interest of time, and I'm looking at number 9, which is our SEAC discussion and our SEAC discussion and questions. So I do have on there, and I placed on there the pro-grant fund speakers. The list was sent out to members for feedback. I don't think I got one feedback, sorry. We got one person, unless Andrea missed some, but I saw one feedback. And so it's out there. We don't have to get into details tonight, but I do need people to get back to me so that we can decide on who we want to utilize, because time is of the essence. And if we want to book a speaker and start planning something to put out from the SEAC committee, we need to do that sooner than later. I suppose we could always send a survey out, and the majority we could go with for the speaker. Sorry, Paul, I see your hand up. Did you want to comment on this?
No, I had something else. But
oh, okay. So again, I want to be cognizant of the time tonight. We're almost through the agenda. So I'm happy to have a conversation tonight if people feel strongly about one of the speakers that was put forward. The other option, like we said, is if you want to give that feedback via email, please do that. I'd be happy to work with Andrea to put a survey together to send that out. And then once we chose the speaker, then we could speak with them about various topics. But like I said, I do want to get that planned and try to get that in the books. It's already March, and if we want to do it this year, we're running out of time. Maria, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just one real quick question, and I'll send in. I didn't realize we were kind of supposed to send it in our feedback. I thought we were going to be talking about it, but that's fine. I can send in my thoughts. But I just was wondering, is it possible? Like, I know I think we have $6,500, so I'm wondering, like, is there enough for a couple of speakers? I know that one speaker it mentioned that Michael Jock, which I thought sounded really great. It said that he doesn't charge much in particular, so. I think when I reply, I'm going to sort of give my top, but more than one, because if we can do more than one, that would be great.
And we can definitely do that. And I think that's why I want to get a better sense of it, because if we just, like you said, we have the funds, we could utilize them for additional speakers. So then it's, do we do 2 speakers in one night? Do we do bullet presentations? Do we do 3 separate events? If that's the way it works. So I think if we can just get some feedback on the speakers and topic areas, then we can at least start approaching them and see what their availability is like, get some more up-to-date information on their fees and all that kind of stuff. Then we can start at least putting the request out to get that done. So yeah, I think that's great. If we could do more than one, I mean, if there's ever a chance to do it, this is the venue to do that with. So I would agree with that if we can make that happen.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I don't want to underestimate, because I know a lot of times things are more effort than it appears on the other side. But I would think that it would be easier to do, a couple of virtual events than a couple of physical events, for example. So again, like you just said, this would be the year to do it, right?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you said that, though, because I was planning a virtual presentation with a keynote speaker from a disability advocate not too long ago, and her fee did not change. It was just as expensive as it was when she was making the rounds. Where we did save was in the cost of transportation or travel expenses. But I was a little bit shocked because that needle didn't move, but that might have been unique to her. So you're right. I don't want to underestimate. Yeah, I don't want to underestimate the time and effort, though. You're right that these speakers and presenters put into it, because the good ones will definitely leave an impact.
Sorry, but what I meant.
Yeah, go ahead.
What I meant was staff effort to put the event together. I would
think.
Oh,
okay. Sorry.
That's okay. But yeah, on a virtual, I would think that it would be less than setting something up at a physical location. But anyways.
Yeah, I think really at this point, it's probably just making sure that we get it scheduled and get it set up in time so we can promote it. I think that's really the bigger, I hate to sort of put something out and only give us 2 weeks to get the message out there. Ideally, if SEAC's going to put something on, I'd love for us to be able to promote that far and wide. So I think that's where I'm thinking about when I look at timelines that are getting a little bit tight. For sure. But yeah, so if people are okay with that, if there's no issue with just sending some feedback in via email, like I said, I can even work with Andrea depending on how many we get back, and we can send it a survey if we need to pick the top 3 or to whatever, top 2, whatever comes back. And then we can send that out to SEAC members via email, and I can start making some phone calls. Good. Yep. Okay, meeting summary and next steps. I think we sort of talked that through the evening. Yep, sorry. Oh, Paul, sorry, I didn't get back to you. Go ahead, please.
No problem. I'll be brief. I haven't forgotten my action item about the taking a look at the goals, the calendars, and meeting effectiveness. What I've been doing is doing some research on what the other SEAC organizations have done as far as their goals, how they set them, what does their calendar look like. And what my approach I was going to suggest is that in this month I'd come up with something, let's call a discussion paper that would be a focus for a subcommittee meeting, and hopefully have that done by the end of March and send it out. Just something to talk about and something to focus on rather than just having a general meeting. And just one quick comment on the start, stop, and continue. I found that quite awkward to answer. To be perfectly honest, I know PAC put it forward, but I'm not sure that's the best way to measure our meeting effectiveness. So that would be one of the things I would be taking a look at. But hopefully in March I'll come back with a paper.
That would be great, Paul. I would totally appreciate that. Thank you so much. If any work that you can do on that would be great. And I'm sorry that you found that the stop start continue is awkward. It's usually a really good exercise, and we normally have more participation than we got. But again, it has to be up to everybody's comfort level. And so I think we just work with the feedback that we had, and we go from there. But people can remember that at any time, if there's something that they need to bring forward with respect to how the meetings are run, or some things that they would like to see happen, or it doesn't end there. We can always certainly have that conversation. But yeah, thanks, Paul, for reminding us about your to-do, and that's wonderful if you don't mind putting something together and getting that out. Okay, so item number 11, our next meeting is Monday, April the 19th. The agenda will include a budget presentation from Aaron Lofts, and then at that point, we'll also be able to provide SEAC meeting dates for the next school year. 12. I received regrets for this evening for Marvin, Helena, Tracy, and Dan. So I'm wondering if I could get a resolution for absenteeism for those 4 members.
I can move it.
Thanks, Maria. Moved by Maria and seconded.
That was Nancy, but I'll second.
Oh, shoot, was it? Okay, thanks, Nancy. Are you seconding, Maria?
Yeah.
Okay, second. Sorry, Nancy moved. Okay, wonderful. And then the last item is a motion to adjourn.
This is Paul. I'll move.
Okay, great. Paul, moved by Paul, seconded.
I'm happy to second.
Okay, thanks, Maria. Seconded by Maria. We will go into our closing prayer. Great, thanks, Andrea. If you'll join me in the sign of our faith, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Blessed are you, O God of all creation. Each day you spread before us the rich and wonderful diversity of the human family created in the divine splendor of your love. Fashioned in your image, you call us to love one another with the same tender care with which you brought us to creation. Each one of us is but one small part of the glory that is you. As we serve the students and families of the Halton Catholic District School Board on the Special Education Advisory Committee, fill us with your grace, guide us with your wisdom, and give us the strength and courage to do your work, so that it may always be said of our every act, God saw that it was good. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Thank you, everybody. We will see you at the next meeting. Look out for some emails coming out on some things. And thanks, everybody, for joining us. Have a great night.
Good night.
Thanks, Brenda. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody. Good night, everyone.